You're listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt DelVecchio and Stephanie Erickson, tackling the topics that life throws in your way.
Good hot afternoon.
Humid afternoon. It's so nice, though.
Humid. We'll take it. Summer finally arrived. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt DelVecchio. I specialize in free retirement home search and senior transition support. I'm here with my co-host, Stephanie Erickson, social worker and family caregiving expert. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello, Matt.
You know, we've got a very interesting show planned today. First up, do you want to make sure that you or your parents maintain their dignity as they age, especially if they have someone providing caregiving services for them? And so coming up, we'll be speaking with Beth Cytryn, a caregiver, about dignity and caregiving and what not to do if you're caregiving for someone. Should be very interesting.
Yeah, in the second half, I'm really looking forward to this. It's such an interesting topic. It's very unique. I certainly don't hear a lot about it, but we're going to be talking to a mother of a transgender teen and their journey that they've been through in the last, I don't know how many years. I guess we're going to find out, but I'm really looking forward to that.
Incredible journey. Very looking forward to that. And that's after the 4:30 news.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about teens, and Stephanie, you and I were talking off air about how, as parents, we try to adapt to their changing attitudes and maturity. And so got a phone call from my son today. He said, "Dad, I want to plan for a ski trip, not this year, but next year. I'm saving up and everything. I want to go to Banff."
I like that he said he's saving up.
He's saving up, and he expects to pay this, and maybe it's a call to get my dad to chip in a little bit, you know. But he's planning a year and a half in advance, and he wants to go to Banff and Jasper and all that. And then he hits me with, "Well, Dad, you understand that this is just for like my CJIP buddies, right? It's because we don't think the parents can keep up with us, you know." So
he's probably right.
He is probably right, unfortunately. But the bubble was burst right there. Okay, the kids are growing up.
I know your son's a bit older than my kids, 12 and 9, but I've been, having a hard time with my daughter. Not that she's doing anything. She's an amazing, energetic, lovable, curious, hysterical girl. She's 12, so she is bouncing from yelling at me to then crying and hugging me to then saying, "I want to spend time with you," to then going into her room. And I don't know what to do. I'm trying so hard to support her, to give her space, to, let her have her freedom. It's so hard watching your kids, become their own person and kind of like pulling back but still being present.
It's
tough.
Funny. I was talking to Philip, your husband, and he was saying the exact same thing about
Probably
you.
about me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, he'll never figure me out.
All right. Well, shall we get into it?
Absolutely.
All right. I think many people have found themselves in a caregiver role. A lot of the times, not by choice. And I think for all of us, if we aren't already doing it, we know one day we'll probably be a caregiver to one, maybe two, or many other loved ones.
Or we'll have someone caring for us.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. So, providing dignity in caregiving has actually become a hot topic. And so to talk more about this, we're so very pleased to have Beth Cytryn, caregiver and founder and owner of BethCare Senior Services. Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is very exciting for me.
Pleasure to have you,
Beth. It's a great topic.
It is, because I think we should start off right off the bat. Like, what do we mean by dignity in caregiving?
It's funny, when Stephanie asked me to talk on this topic, the first thing I did was go to the dictionary to see what exactly is the definition of dignity. And the Webster Dictionary says it's the quality of being worthy of honor or respect. So it's very simple. It's everything that we all need, and it's everything that we all want. So if it's something that we need and want, it should be very easy to give.
And I think too, for dignity, I find that sometimes we only know what it is when we don't have it. Like that's when we notice that it doesn't exist. And I mean, being in residences and being around families a lot, I certainly see it when it's missing. I'm sure, Matt, you've seen it too,
yes,
going around residences. And I just actually this week was with a family, and the gentleman needed a change. He had soiled himself and he needed to be changed during our interview. And when the caregivers took him into the bathroom, they left the door wide open and they had to fully undress him. And I was in the room. And it wasn't that it made me uncomfortable. My heart was breaking for this man. To me, that was, okay, there goes his dignity. So I guess that's kind of an example, huh, Beth?
Well, it's a perfect example. It's really an extreme, because just leaving the bathroom door open for anybody, a senior or anybody, is just wrong.
Unless you're a mother, and unfortunately, even when it's shut, my kids come in anyway, right?
but that's still in your private setting. That's your home. That's something, that's a dynamic that's been created within the family. But the bottom line is, for the individual that was being changed, or the individual that needed to be cleaned, the truth of the matter is he probably didn't have a choice, and he wasn't able to say, I need that bathroom door closed. So I think dignity is about people communicating and understanding what the other person's needs are. Sometimes we assume we know what somebody's needs are, but we have to communicate with them and find out what their needs are, and let them have a little bit of control and choice of what they need done. The bathroom is one example, but there's many.
That's Beth Cytryn talking to us about dignity and caregiving. I'm at DelVecchio here with Stephanie Erickson. We're going to open up the lines right away, because I think there's a lot of caregivers out there that perhaps could provide us with some of their experience, and if particularly related to dignity and caregiving, whether you've been through it, and at the other side, perhaps you've been on the receiving end of caregiving, something might have happened, and how did you handle that situation, and what would you suggest for future, so we can all learn. So please feel free to call us at 514-790-0800. That's 514-790-0800, or text us at 514-800. Now, Beth, you're talking about communication here, and I think that is such a huge topic, because as a caregiver, whether it's someone that's being provided by a CLSC or a private caregiver, and in many cases it's the son, the daughter, a relative that's providing caregiving, we think we're doing the right things, but I think a lot of the time is just simply asking the questions, getting their opinions, having that communication instead of assuming what they would want. Would that be correct?
Well, also, communication is very important, but we have to think globally. There's a lot of individuals out there that need care that are not able to communicate what they need. So it's the caregiver's responsibility to read the signs, because that is a part of the communication. So they need to read the signs. They need to be mindful of what the individual is trying to say, whether through body or through verbal, words that may not make sense. But also, if you're listening to someone and really watching them, you will understand what they're trying to communicate. And most important, you have to truly listen with your eyes, with your ears, and then you will understand what the individual will need.
And I guess even if a person cannot communicate, as you're saying, so maybe they're in a medical condition or some sort of cognitive impairment, they can't verbalize, or the family members aren't around in that particular moment to communicate on their behalf, we can still just, I guess, put ourselves in their shoes. So if there's someone, for example, in palliative care and perhaps non-communicative, they're or in a coma or something like that, there are still ways to provide dignified care by imagining, if I were in this situation, how would I want that nurse to approach me? So things like, I love it when I see when my clients are not responding or they're asleep, but the caregiver's talking to them, hi, Mr. Jones, I'm going to move your arm here, I'm going to do that, and speaking to them, even though there's no response, but still respecting there's a human being in front of me.
If you're proactive and you explain to the person what you are about to do to help them, there is no way that you're showing them a disrespect, because it's probably a task that definitely needs to be done. So you explain to them why you're doing it, what you're doing, and that within itself is showing them respect and dignity.
Yeah.
I think it's an important word, respect and dignity. Sometimes we'll make those assumptions and you don't even realize it, but you are maybe doing some dignity breaches. Beth, I think one of the things that we said at the offset is some of the things that we do not or should not do from a caregiver's perspective. And a lot of times I think there's assumptions that we make. So we're going to cut out for a little traffic update, but I think we'd like to focus on what shouldn't we do in a caregiving role. But first, let's get an update from the CJAD Traffic Center.
This is Life Unrehearsed with Matt DelVecchio and Stephanie Erickson.
Fat man looking at a shining steel, thin man looking at his last meal, holler man looking in a cotton field for dignity.
Cannot go wrong with Bob Dylan, ever. Huh, Matt?
Bob Dylan and dignity. Okay,
Yeah,
it does go together.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Stephanie Erickson, family caregiving expert and social worker, here with Matt DelVecchio, who specializes in free retirement, home search, and senior transitions. Before we went out to traffic, we were speaking with Beth Cytryn. She's the founder and owner of BethCare Senior Services, and we've been talking about dignity and caregiving. Matt, you asked Beth when we came back to talk about the should nots, the things that we should not do to, I guess, break somebody's dignity, with the things that we should not do, the things we should avoid. But before we get to that, I just want to say something very positive. We had a nice text come in, someone thanking us ladies. I guess, Matt, somehow your voice was missed. I think they mean you too, Matt.
I didn't shave my legs today. I'm sorry.
It's not that walk that you do in the red
No,
high
that's
heels,
right.
whatever that walk is. Thank you, ladies, for protecting the dignity of our most vulnerable people. Listening to you now makes me realize that wonderful people are still out there, and I have to second that, Beth. I know Beth personally through her work, and she is amazing. So thank you, Beth, for protecting our seniors and others.
Thank you. Yes.
So now let's go back to what Matt was saying. What are the should nots? What should we not do? That's hard to say.
Okay, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people do is they label people. So right away they may see somebody in a wheelchair or walking hunched over. And we're not just talking about seniors here. We're talking about many people that need care. There's so many different areas. And labeling someone and assuming you know what their challenges are without giving them the benefit of the doubt, without really finding out to understand them, that's one of a very big error. And another thing is infantilizing. Treating someone like a child when they're 85, 95 years old is just wrong.
Yeah.
It's just wrong. So stay focused on person-centered care, and realizing that you need to get to know the individual to really care for them and understand who they are before you can just go and make assumptions.
It's a very good point. And, the texts keep coming in. And if you do want to text us, please text us at 514-800. That's Beth Cytryn, owner of... where are we going with this, Beth? BethCare Senior Services. And your conversation about dignity and caregiving has been excellent, and obviously some interest there. So 514-800 for text, or even call us at 514-790-0800. I'm going to read the very next text, which segues into one of our next questions, actually, Beth. Read dignity. My mom has been in 2 different residences in the past 5 years. My eyes have seen many injustices. A few staff lack empathy and require further training. Many times they don't even pull the curtain closed when undressing my mom. She shares a room with someone. Family members must be there often to see these things. Dignity goes out the window.
Oh, breaks my heart.
And I think this is a real text. It's one of the questions that we wanted to ask, Beth, was if you do see this, whether it's through a senior residence, whether it's through a professional caregiving service, or even a relative, how do we approach, if we take the senior residence example, what do we do? Do we approach the caregiver? Do we go to the manager? There's a bit of an injustice being done, particularly related to dignity, and we want to get this solved.
First of all, it's a very big, very, very big issue in many areas. I feel that approaching a caregiver can be very delicate because you may make things worse, and the person that will get the raw end of that deal will be the individual that the caregiver is taking care of.
Oh my God.
So I really feel that your approach should be with staff that is superior, that could bring this to the attention of the caregivers. And in a delicate way, we can remind the caregivers that we like the door closed. That being said, everything boils down to people. Everything boils down to individuals. And it's up to you as a child to assess who is actually taking care of your mother or father or loved one, and that you must approach them in the best way that you feel will be most effective, because if not, your parent will be the one to pay.
That was Beth Cytryn, caregiver and owner of BethCare Senior Services. This is Life Unrehearsed. If you want to give us your information, your story about caregiving and dignity, make sure to give us a call, 514-790-0800, or text us at 514-800. Now, Beth, I just want to quickly go to a personal note, because I know that you cared for your mom who had dementia. That's what got you into this. So What did you learn about dignity in being the caregiver for your mother? What did your relationship with her as her caregiver teach you about dignified care?
Well, I think that did get a little more personal than I expected, but
sorry, Beth.
That's okay.
Want to move on? We don't have to answer
that's
it.
fine.
Okay.
I think that my mom has always been there for me. I've never had an issue in my life where she wasn't. So when the cards were turned and I had to take care of her, it was just very simple. I just always saw her as a person, and I always respected the fact that she was always there for me, and now it was my turn. My mom did live in a senior facility, and I did see things that made me unhappy, but I addressed each situation at hand.
Okay.
And I try not to look at things globally and make things upset me. I try to stay focused on what the issue was at hand.
That's good advice.
Well, Beth, as the owner of a home care company and being responsible for training your caregivers, it's very comforting to hear your compassion about that. And we're going to go right to call, Stephanie. We've got a call coming in from Lucy in the West Island. And Lucy, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you for your program today. I was just very concerned because I went to visit a friend recently who is in a well-known establishment for elder people, and I was told by my friend, who is 90, I'd say about 85% lucid all the time, who suffered with a stroke, and she told me at one point of my visit that a person who looks after her told her, "I hope you die." Okay. Another one, she said they hate her for making them work so hard. And the reason being, I think, she said herself, she said, that's elder abuse. And I said, yes, it is. And I said, I feel terrible. And did you tell someone? And she told somebody in her family, so they were going to report it. But the thing was, she's been fed with a tube for a couple of months, which makes her have to go to the washroom or the bathroom regularly. And this is what she says that they give her heck for, because they feel that they always have to change her. And she doesn't know what to do.
Right. Lucy, I think that's a perfect example. And thank you for your call. And Beth,
sorry for your friend's situation. That's really horrendous.
And you could see it being a common situation. The caregivers were used to doing something. All of a sudden, now it becomes higher maintenance, if you will, and more work. And so, Beth, kind of what you were alluding to before, in those situations, what can Lucy's friend do to try to help this situation?
Well, this is a situation where I really believe the family really needs to bring this to higher staff and have a meeting with maybe there's a social worker in the facility, or there's a manager or a head nurse, and this needs to be addressed, because this is unacceptable to talk to anybody this way, a senior or anybody. This is
absolutely.
not accepted.
And I would also, if that doesn't work within the residence, if it's a private residence, I would still go to the CLSC and ask for someone to be an advocate for you and help you within that private residence as well.
Social worker.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now, Beth, we were talking about some of the negative things about dignity and care. Give us some positives. What are things that people are doing right now where they are providing dignified care, and maybe they're not even recognizing that that's what they're doing? What are people doing?
Well, they're reaching out to people like me. You've got some great kids out there who just really want to make sure their families are their loved ones are being taken care of in the best way they can. So even though they may be in a senior facility, they reach out to organizations like myself that bring in special boutique type of services that cater one-on-one. And that's what a lot of seniors do need. They need that one-on-one attention.
And of course, you're talking senior residences. This is easily applicable at the home of the families as well.
This is applicable anywhere.
Yeah, and a lot of the adult children as well, things that I see them do that maybe they're not giving the self credit for. But again, talking to their parent as they're providing the care, explaining what it is they're doing, including them in conversations and decisions, even if maybe they don't understand everything. But including them in those decisions, bringing in people that help them, all of that is good. And there's a lot of families out there that are providing really dignified care. It's not all negative.
No, they're doing their best, but sometimes it's okay to get advice of the professionals.
Yeah.
So, Beth, thank you very much. This was really informative and lots of interest. How could people get a hold of you, Beth?
Well, they can go on my website. It's BethCare. So the website is BethCare.com, or you can reach me at 514-824-4699.
Okay, thanks a lot, Beth, and we'll make sure to post that link on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. But now we're going to head out to the newsroom.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt DelVecchio and Stephanie Erickson, tackling the topics that life throws in your way.
But I'm only human, and I bleed when I fall down. I'm only human, and I crash and I break down. Your words in my head.
Welcome back. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Stephanie Erickson, social worker and family caregiving expert, here with Matt DelVecchio, specialist in retirement home searches and senior transitions. Before we move on, I just want to mention, Matt, I don't know if you saw the text that came in.
Saw it.
Obviously, one of your clients, she says, I think she, maybe it's a he. No, it's a she, because there's her name. I just moved my mom to a residence in St. Lambert and couldn't be happier. The staff is fantastic. Thanks, Matt, for your help. So obviously you found a place where they were giving dignified care. So awesome.
That's right. And that's from Lori. Lori, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
That's great. Now, we hear about transgender individuals and how hard it can be for them to be living, him or her, to be living inside a body that doesn't match how they feel. Their exterior genitalia, I guess you could say, doesn't match how they feel inside. And it just must be so hard for those people. And when I think about being a teenager and all of the angst that comes with being a teen anyway, and then you throw that on top of it, oh my God, it must be so hard.
It's I can't imagine. You know, I think the conversation, even just us having this type of conversation on transgender teens, 5-10 years ago wasn't even on the radar, right? We weren't even talking about it. And that kind of transitioned into, as a parent, well, I can't see that happen. I can't imagine it. That's only happens to others. Yeah. And now with all the media attention, the conversation as a parent is, what would I do if one of my children was a transgender teen? Yeah. And that's why we're so happy for our guest today.
I know. I'm really happy. And you know, in our family, Matt, what is exciting for me about this topic is this is in my family as well.
Really?
Yeah, I have a nephew and he's transgender, and really excited to have another parent in here. I mean, I'm not a parent, but just to talk about this topic. I haven't talked to him directly about his experience. So I'm happy to have in studio with us today, Susan, and she's a mother of a transgender teen. We're calling her Susan, but actually that's not her name. So that tells you something already about society's acceptance of this. She's asked to have some anonymity. So welcome to the show, Susan.
Thank you.
So
thank you for inviting me.
We're not so far in society if you feel like you need to not be known. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. I mean, every case is different, of course. In our case, comments were made, and they were a little difficult for us to swallow. And my child, we kind of moved out of the area and we started over, and she chose another school, and therefore she's not out in that school. And therefore I myself am not always out in every situation. So it kind of varies from situation to situation. And it is a personal topic because it's a little personal to tell the world basically what's in your pants.
Yeah.
And you know, it's we want to hear so much more about this incredible journey, but just for clarification purposes, let's back it up a little bit. You say your daughter. So was your daughter a daughter at birth, or what was the situation?
Well, at birth, like all babies, we see them, they're born, we see them naked, and based on their genitalia, we assign them as a boy or as a girl. So we assign them. So my child at birth, well, based on their anatomy, was assigned boy.
Right. So it was a boy, son.
At birth, yes.
Okay. And then when, Susan, did your daughter start to verbalize to you, or perhaps it was just your observations as a very in tune and obviously empathic and amazing connected mother, clearly with the way that you're responding to this, when was it that you all started to realize that the gender that she was born, or not the gender, I don't know, how do I say it?
It's
the gender that she was born with was not really who she is, matching what's in her brain. When did that happen? Around what age?
Well, I mean, early on. So basically, my child was the third child, and the third child, I had 2 girls, and my third child was a boy. So early on, we'd offer the boy Spider-Man and what is typically stereotyped as a boy
Cars,
toy.
Trucks, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there was no interest. And I mean, no interest. Even like to unwrap the little car from the wrapper, no interest. But, like everyone would say, well, that's so funny because this kid has 2 sisters and this kid is in tune with his feminine side. And we would laugh it off. But it went on. And I think when my child was maybe under 5, maybe around 3.5, 4, said to me, I'm a girl.
How interesting.
I
that
said
young.
no. But I said no. No.
Right.
Was that more of a denial, or was it just trying to steer him in the right direction?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. First of all, not understanding what's going on. How can a child say this? How can my boy say I'm a girl? So there's confusion and there's being unaware. I mean, I'm uninformed that children can change their gender. I didn't understand. And then of course I did what people would kind of say, well, take away the girl stuff and bring in more boy stuff. I mean, it sounds so silly now that I'm saying it because this wasn't 20 years ago. I mean, my child is an adolescent, so this occurred less than a decade ago. And I would say I would just try to give more boy things and stereotypically boy things, and that didn't work. But you're just perplexed. So when you're perplexed, you tend to act sometimes. I think now when I look back, I think that was a silly way of acting, but I was perplexed.
Yeah. You're listening to Susan. She's the mother of a transgender teen. We're so pleased that you're in studio. So you're talking about, being confused, being perplexed as your daughter was saying, I'm a girl. But I think you're being pretty hard on yourself because I don't think many of us would expect that. And kids ask questions too. It's like, well, what makes me a boy? What makes me a girl? I mean, that's not an odd question to ask. So now as your daughter's getting older, when was it that it clicked for you? Okay, this is more than just a learning that she's going through. This is really about an identification.
Oh yes, this was. I mean, it was persistent. It was consistent. It was often. It was all the time. I mean, she did suppress. I mean, because I would say no, and people around would laugh. And at a certain age, like around the age of 6, 7, it's not as funny anymore. When they're in school, it's not funny. You can laugh it off when they're in preschool, but now people are not laughing. They're actually mocking. So the child would start to notice and would start to suppress. And I felt my child wasn't as well and wasn't themselves. And I would question the pediatrician every year. And there was one year, I think when my child was 8, my pediatrician said, you know what, maybe at this point you've been bringing this up, you should maybe consult with this doctor. So there's a doctor that helps us out and explains everything. I remember in my case, we were in the waiting room and my child said, so I'm going to see this doctor. Does the doctor have this machine where I can walk in as a boy and come out as a girl?
Oh my God. Oh, that breaks my heart.
Amazing. You're listening to Susan, a mother of a transgender teen now, your daughter. But what's I find quite interesting here is we think of it as a teenage issue, and I can't imagine as a teenager, but this is a little earlier. And was there a point in time, because now you're 8, 9, 10 years old, and your daughter is now going to start entering the teen years. As a mother, I would love to hear how you felt emotionally, because this road ahead for her is not going to be that easy.
Yeah, but first we're going to have to head over to the CJD Traffic Center, and then we're going to get back to that.
This is Life Unrehearsed with Matt DelVecchio and Stephanie Erickson.
What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about
Stephanie, if you only had your mic on and everyone could have heard you sing and dance, little Pink, what about us?
I love that. I love her. Love her.
I got so caught up in our conversation, Stephanie. I'm so entrenched, such an interesting topic, and thanks for picking up for the traffic. Yeah, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Traffic update. It's important on CJD to get the regular updates.
Yeah, you're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio, and in studio we have with us Susan, a mom of a transgender teen. And Matt, you were just saying how courageous she is for coming coming in. And it's really impressive that you're bringing this out in the open and we're talking about it, because I don't think that a lot of voices are heard in this area. And one of the things, Matt, that you asked right before we went to traffic is about your own personal emotional experience, Susan. We're focusing on your daughter, but Matt was asking you, what has this been like for you personally?
Well, every journey is different, right? So my journey, I didn't understand. I didn't know this existed. So I did a lot of research. I threw myself in the topic. I asked questions to the doctor. I had many appointments and I tried to see, is this real? So my journey was a lot of research. And then I needed to speak to other parents. Well, where do you go?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's not when you Google. This is not
there
like
are
18
no other
groups
parents.
that come
Like,
up. Yeah,
there's no group.
Yeah.
The doctor put me in touch with other parents, and we actually co-founded. We founded together a group of gender creative kids here in Montreal, and I needed to exchange with the other parents.
Absolutely.
I had questions. Is this real? Is this a phase? And that for me helped me understand that this was a real journey, and I had to learn a lot. I had to learn that gender is not determined by one's anatomy. It's determined by one's brain. So for me, there was a lot of learning, and then I had to educate my surrounding.
Yeah.
So that was part of my process and part of my journey.
Yeah.
This is Life Unrehearsed. You're listening to a wonderful mom of a transgender teen. And thank you for being with us and being so open and transparent with us. Because I think you touched on something there about the brain, but I think we need to make it clear this isn't a mental health issue. So could you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I think it gets a gray zone.
That's a really, really good point, Matt.
It's
I'm glad
not
you said that.
It's not an illness. It's not a mental health issue. I'm so glad you brought that up, because people do ask me, like, how can this be fixed? Well, there's nothing to fix. And that too is something to understand. There's nothing to fix. It's just a way of being. So their brain, the person who's transgender, their brain is what has determined their gender. And that's it. So it's internal. It's an internal feeling. So once we understand that, we can move on. If we don't understand that, then we're not moving on and supporting the child. And the main thing we need to do is to support the child, because there's no other intervention besides hormone intervention should the child choose to follow through with that.
That's right. That's Susan. She's a mother of a transgender teen. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Susan, when you're talking about that the brain is determining that, so to me it's kind of like argument is probably not the right word, but it's the thing that the gay community will say too is, well, this is how I was born. It's nothing that I chose to be. So why is it that it seems like in that area people have been more accepting and there's been more progress than with transgender? Can I make that connection? Or
society,
is it...
Yes, you can. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, society evolves at its own rate, right? Society is evolving. Laws help us with this. So laws have helped us make it that in the Charter of Rights, now we can't discriminate based on one's gender identity. So laws help our cause or the situation become understood. So that's what helps society evolve, and the laws have just freshly been put into action.
Renewed,
right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons.
Now, Susan, you talked about when you're doing research as a parent, and you didn't ask for this. You're kind of thrown into this, and now you do search. A few years ago, the search might have been a lot more difficult. There's more and more information, but I think what is so important, and you've expressed to us, is the personal connection with other parents in your group. So could you tell us a little bit more about Gender Creative Kids, and how did that get started?
Yes, so we're very young. We're 4 years old. We started in 2013, a group of parents, and we co-founded this support group where we have support, we have education, and advocacy. So we have once a month meetings for parents, and we also support the child, the adolescent, or even the young adult. And so we have meetings at the same facility once a month. And that's where exchanges occur. New parents come in with emotions. Parents who have a little bit of experience come in and share their experiences. And that, for me, has been the biggest resource.
Yeah, so there must be a lot of healing there too for people, because you're around like-minded people who have gone through the same experience, and there's a lot of healing when you're able to not only share your own story but also help others. Thank you so much, Susan, for coming in. What is the website for Gender Creative Kids, or how do people get a hold of you?
It's Montreal-based, so it's gendercreativekids.ca, and you can write to us at info@gendercreativekids.ca.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for being so strong. And if you've got to be strong, can't imagine about your daughter being strong. So wish her all the best of strength.
She's welcome here anytime.
Absolutely. Now, join us next week as we talk with Rosemary Steinberg. She's an ombudsman from the Jewish General Hospital, and we'll also welcome back our therapist, Sandra Reich, to discuss screen time and kids. Thank you so much for listening to Life Unrehearsed. You can catch us every Sunday at 4 o'clock.